Now to begin the summit, it is my honor to introduce Dr. Marcus Nelson, the superintendent of Waco ISD. Dr. Nelson was hired earlier this year by our Board of Trustees. He has a proven record of student success, particularly with areas of high economically disadvantaged student percentages. He most recently served as superintendent of Laredo ISD. In 2014, he was recognized by the Texas Association of School Boards as the outstanding superintendent in the entire state of Texas. Since June, Dr. Nelson has already spoken at numerous community events. He also gets asked to speak at national conferences. At all his engagements, the reaction is always the same. Dr. Nelson is the most captivating speaker I've ever heard. Actually, on nights like tonight when we both get to speak, people say Dr. Nelson is one of the two most captivating speakers. See, I get to say that because I sign his check. Join me and extend a warm welcome to the superintendent of the Waco Public Schools, Dr. A. Marcus Nelson.
Buenas tardes. Good afternoon, good evening. Good evening. I'm very excited to be here in the great city of Waco, Texas. It is without question an exciting time to be in our vibrant city. There's so many wonderful things happening in our community. But we know the reason we're here today is because the work is not done. We still have a lot of heavy lifting to do. And those of us that are in this room over the next few months, and the next year, we're going to feel the burn in trying to create a Waco of tomorrow. And it won't just happen with Prosper Waco working alone. That's the reason for the summit. As well organized and as data driven as the Prosper Waco organization is, they need help. We need help. And as one of the champions for our most precious resource, our children, I want to thank you for coming to this summit and being willing to participate in a conversation that our intent is for something special to happen. You know, there's a lot of people that could care less about what happens to the future of Waco. Hey, their kids already graduated. They're done. They finna move anyway. Things like that. But for those of us that have made this commitment to make this our home, we're gonna have to ask ourselves, what are we doing to serve others? Before I make a few remarks, I did want to recognize a few very special people on my team that I've had a chance to work with over the last 3 months. And without question, I work with some of the best people I've ever worked with in my entire career. You already met our board president, Mr. Pat Atkins, is on his lovely wife, Sandy, who's one of our finest teachers, to stand as well and be recognized. We also have the vice president of our board, Mr. Alan Sykes, and his lovely wife, Jane. I believe they're, not sure. And I won't introduce everyone because I know there's a lot of WISD employees here. I see you, and I know that you are special parts of our team. We have coaches here, and counselors, and behavioral specialists, but a couple of people I thought you just want to put a name with a face with. First of all, our Director of Health Services, Mrs. Candy Merkel. Stand up. You know you want to stand. Our Director of Homeless Services, Mrs. Kim Ellis. and her husband, David. Our Director of Early Childhood Services, Dr. Mary Kondrat. Our Director of Career and Technical Education and a finalist for National Career and Technical Education Administrator of the Year, Dr. Donna McKethan. Representing the human resources side, the human performance side of our organization, she's a lady who needs no introduction. Please help me welcome Ms. Elaine Boteo, Assistant Superintendent. We have Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Curriculum, Dr. Scott McClanahan. Our Assistant Superintendent of Elementary Education, amazing Grace Benson. One of the hires that I brought from Laredo, Mr. Israel Carrera, Assistant Sup of Operations. Last but certainly not least, our Assistant Superintendent of School Improvement, Mrs. Yolanda Williams. You know, you have a host of speakers that are going to be here, so I won't take much time. I just want to emphasize that the work that we're doing is really, the term that Prosper Waco uses all the time is called collective impact. You know, I had to look that up, I had to Google that. But when you really summarize it in a connotative format, it's really this whole concept of us taking our best work, all of us, doing our very best work and making a commitment to the future of this community. We cannot do it in silos. We cannot do it separate. But if we want a vibrant and strong Waco of tomorrow, in my humble opinion, it starts in the classrooms, in the hearts and the minds of our youth today. I'd also like to recognize my very good friend and partner and colleague, Dr. George Kazanis from the Midway Independent School District, Superintendent of Schools. Also would like to recognize my very good friend, Dr. Jerry Mays and the Region 12 staff that are here. Appreciate your time. And last but certainly not least on my team, everybody should know her. She's the former mayor of Waco, Texas, and she is now the Assistant Superintendent of Support Services. Please help me welcome Dr. Robin McDurham. And one more. He's new. He's all the way from the great city of Belton, Texas. He is now the face of Waco Independent School District, besides me. Let you get a side view. Please help me welcome Mr. Kyle DeBeer. And then in closing, what we really wanted to emphasize, I wanted you to know that I have acclimated. And I am here, and this work is so important to me. I mean, I wake up in the morning, and usually by 6 o'clock, I have 5 or 6 text messages from the people I just introduced to you. And we work all day, and then at the end of the day, around 7 or 8 o'clock, we go home and work some more. And the reason is because in our school district, we have a lot of work to do. And if we're not careful, the Texas Education Agency, the state of Texas, is trying to close this school district, one school at a time. And they've put procedures and statutes in place that if there's not people like me and people like you who refuse to have a conversation about closing any more schools. They will close another school in Waco ISD by taking that school out of my dead, cold hands. It won't happen. Now, I don't want anybody to send that to TEA, though. It's not a dare. But no, the challenges are serious. And on behalf of our Board of Trustees, our faculty and staff, we want to thank organizations like Prosper Waco for their willingness to partner with organizations like the public schools and really put their money and their time and their effort and their treasure. The Board of Directors for Prosper Waco, I've met with these men and women. I know where their heart is. Former Mayor Dupuy, I know what she wants for the kids of today. She's got a grandchild walking our halls. So this is personal. And for me, it's the same way. I applaud you for being here tonight. And I would just leave you with one thought that hopefully you will think about throughout the rest of the conversations that we have here. It's a poem by a gentleman named William Allen Dromgoole. And in this poem, it's called Bridge Builder, and he says, an old man going a lone highway came at the evening, cold and gray, to a chasm vast and wide and steep, with waters rolling cold and deep. The old man crossed the twilight dim. The sullen streams had no fears for him, but he turned when safe on the other side and built a bridge to span the tide. Old man, said fellow pilgrim near, you're wasting your strength with building here. Your journey will end with the ending day. You never again will pass this way. You've crossed the chasm deep and wide. Why build you this bridge at evening tide? The builder lifted his old gray head. Good friend, in the path I've come, he said, there followeth after me today are youth whose feet must pass this way. They too must cross in the twilight dim. Good friend, we build these bridges for them. I'm honored to be a part of this community, honored to serve as your superintendent. God bless you. God bless Prosper Waco.
The mission of the Prosper Waco Initiative is to build an environment in which all members of our Waco community can measurably improve their education, health, and financial security. I don't think there's a better way to articulate why that's important than what Dr. Nelson just talked about in terms of the success of children and youth in our community and the well-being of the school district and strength of the educational system in our community. So thank you, Dr. Nelson. My name is Matthew Polk. I'm the Executive Director of the Prosper Waco staff, and our job as a team is to support the work of the individuals and the organizations in this room tonight, whether it's Waco ISD, Midway ISD, our surrounding school districts, whether it's the nonprofit organizations, the healthcare system. Prosper Waco is not an organization. It is, but it's not. It's an initiative. It's a community initiative. It's about all of us working together to do exactly what Dr. Nelson talked about. We want to talk a little bit about where we've been very briefly. Dr. Nelson used the term collective impact. I know a lot of you in this room have heard that term a lot over the last 2 or 3 years, so we're not going to spend a lot of time on it, but for those of you who are just catching up, just tuning in, we want to talk about the collective impact model that we're using as a framework for the Prosper Waco initiative. You heard a little bit about it in the video at the beginning. You can check out that video on our website after tonight if you didn't quite get to catch the whole thing, but let's just sum it up very quickly. 4 basic points about how collective impact works. First, partners, stakeholders in a community, in this case really our entire community, agree on what they're trying to achieve. And they articulate what they're trying to achieve in the form of measurable goals They say, what do we want to do and how are we going to know if we get there? We have to be able to measure it. When they do that, they're able to use those goals as a lens for individual organizations, for individual partners. They can use those goals to guide their own work. So they can say, what are we doing? What are the programs and the services we deliver? What is the work we do? And how do we do it in a way that over time helps us move more and more towards achieving these goals that all of us share and that other organizations are also working to help achieve? But beyond that, they also, as partners, look at what can we do together that we couldn't do individually. What can we build together as partners that no one organization could do on its own? And that's a big piece of what we do as the Prosper Waco staff, is think about, given the great things that are being done by individual organizations in this community, where can we step in and help build something that's greater than the sum of the parts, that's a partnership, a project, an effort, a collaboration that's more than any one organization could do on its own. And that's the role of the backbone organization in collective impact. This idea of having a staff, yes, we're a small organization, but we exist to work with those of you in this room, in this community, to support the work that you're doing, that your organizations are doing, to help align that work. Yes, I use the term herd the cats. Don't use it as much as I used to, but because we're all starting to move in that same direction naturally as we go. But that's our job, is to help move everybody in the same direction and help build those partnerships that are really more than any one organization would be able to do or would be inclined to do on its own. So let's go back to those measurable goals. These are things that a lot of you can name off the top of your head. Others of you may be seeing this for the first time. These are listed in more detail on the Prosper Waco Initiative website in the 2016-2017 initiative report. Some of you have that in hard copy in front of you. Others probably will look at that digitally. There is more detail about the goals in those other places, because what we want to show is that they are articulated, clear, measurable goals. For now, we've just listed them in bullet points up on the screen. So we're looking at, in terms of education, we're looking at improving the school readiness of children in our community, so that when they hit the doors in Dr. Nelson's schools and Dr. Kazanis' schools and Dr. Shields' schools in La Vega, they are ready to go, they're ready to learn, they're ready to be successful. In terms of the actual academic process, third grade reading, we know, educators know from research that where a student stands in terms of their literacy, their ability to read at the third grade predicts their success down the line academically. And then, of course, college and career readiness, which is that ultimate kind of success measure for the educational system. Specifically, in our goals for the Prosper Waco initiative, the percentage of economically disadvantaged students who complete a workforce certificate or college degree, who have that opportunity and take that opportunity to be successful beyond high school in a way that will help them support themselves and their families over the long term. What about health? Access to care, making sure that people are able to access basic primary preventative health care in a way that doesn't have them going to the emergency room to get care that they could have gotten better and more cheaply somewhere else before there was an emergency. Healthy living, reducing child and adult obesity through encouraging healthy eating, active living. We have women's health, specifically starting with encouraging the more than 1 out of 4 women in our community who don't receive annual preventive care to get that care, helping them to get that care, which then leads to positive birth outcomes for women who do end up having a child. Mental health, access to high quality mental health care services is the last major health goal within the initiative. And then financial security. On the financial security side, it's a very easy stair-step process, increasing employment opportunities. We know the unemployment rate in Waco-McLennan County is very low at the moment. Matt Metters, with the CEO and president of the chamber, will tell you that, but we also know that our youth cohort, 16 to 24-year-olds, need more opportunities to get on that ladder to long-term employment opportunities. Once you're employed, you think about increasing your income through increasing your job opportunities, your ability to move up the ladder, your educational attainment so that you can develop more skills. And then we look at helping households, helping families build wealth, helping them save, encouraging them and empowering them to save more of their earnings, and to ultimately move towards those wealth building steps like home ownership. So those are the basic goals. There are a lot of people working on these things. Those goals, let me go back for a second. Let me emphasize the fact that these goals are what I would call outcome-based goals rather than issue-based goals. And what do I mean by that? I mean they're big picture. They're big things that we want to move toward as a community. There's no silver bullet. There's not someone who can go out and say, all of a sudden we're going to figure out how we improve women's health outcomes or youth employment single-handedly in the community. They're big things that our community is working on together. They're not single issues. There are lots of important issues to be addressed in any community, whether it's domestic violence or homelessness or food insecurity. Those are important things. But what collective impact goals like this do is give us something to shoot for, an aspiration to say this is where we're trying to move the needle, and then allows individual organizations to say, given the issue we work on, how does that fit in to this bigger framework? How does that move us in the direction of better educational attainment, better health outcomes, and more financial security for people in this community? So that's the difference between what you often see in terms of a community saying, we want to attack this issue, versus our community saying, we want to set a vision for where we are going as a community. And this is something more than 10 years ago that Mayor May Jackson set in front of our community and said, Waco needs a vision for where it wants to be. That's what we're hearing Dr. Nelson say tonight about where we want to go. And so that's what these collective impact goals do. We want to quickly run through, folks. We've already had a lot of folks recognized and a lot of clapping, and clapping's good for the energy in the room, so we'll do some more of that. But we'll hold it till the end. So let me run through several groups of folks who are hard at work within this initiative. First of all, thank you to the Prosper Waco Board of Directors, former Mayor Malcolm Duncan Jr., former Mayor Virginia Dupuy, and others who have joined over the last 2 or 3 years to support the Backbone organization, but also to bring together major stakeholders within the community to move our community toward this collective impact process. Second, the Prosper Waco Leadership Council. This is a group of people that really represents how collective impact works. It is a cross-sector group of folks who represent educators, K-12 and higher ed, who represent healthcare providers across our community. They represent the business community, engaged citizens and community members, representatives from our local government, as well as representatives from our funders like our foundations in the United Way. When you get this group of people in the room, they're able to say, how does it all work together? Given the goals that we've set, and they continue to look at those goals to make sure they're the right goals for our community, but given those goals, how do education efforts fit with and reinforce and support what we're doing in health? And how does that work together with what we're doing in terms of financial security? This group was pulled together from 3 separate steering committees that we had in the 3 impact areas who have really led the charge over the last 2.5 years. And we want to thank the folks who stepped up and led those steering committees up through this summer before we kind of merged them into one overarching leadership council. So in education, that was Dr. Kazanis, Dr. George Englehart, formerly of Baylor University. In health, that's Sherry Williams with our public health district, and Dr. Jim Morrison with Baylor Scott and White Hillcrest Medical Center. And the financial security side, that's Matt Metters with the Waco Chamber and Libby Kame with Extraco Banks. They volunteered a lot of their time and leadership to help move this forward, and they're still involved at this leadership council level. There are a lot of you in the room who spend a lot of time in meetings, meetings period, but it's also meetings within the Prosper Waco initiative. So there are a number within these education, health, and financial security impact areas of groups that meet on a routine basis, whether that's monthly or quarterly. They're coming together and saying, as we said, given what we do, given our organization, we want to be at the table to talk about what we're doing, how that connects with what other organizations are doing, and how we build something more together. And so these groups that are listed up here represent dozens and dozens and dozens of engaged professionals and community members who are part of that conversation. And then we have the Prosper Waco Community Engagement Council, who you'll see and hear from in a few minutes, who are engaged community members who care about their neighborhood, who come to the table and meet monthly, work with Elizabeth Lagawa, our Director of Community Engagement, to say, how do we engage other people in our neighborhood and our community to do this kind of work at the neighborhood level, to make these types of changes, to get things done in our neighborhood, not necessarily within the school system or the healthcare system. And so it works at different levels. And those folks are incredibly important. So very quickly, if you're any of these people I've just named, from the Prosper Waco Board of Directors to the Leadership Council, Working Group, Community Engagement Council, will you stand up real quick and let us thank you? Come on, come on. I think there are more of you out there than we're willing to stand up. Maybe you're still eating because you were last through the line, but that's okay. As Pat mentioned earlier, this year's summit does not include the facilitated community discussion that was part of the 2015 and 2016 summits for two reasons. First, we've committed to engaging community members on an ongoing basis throughout the year. And second, we really wanted to focus our time tonight on how we're walking the walk as a community, so to speak, and not just talking the talk. And so we wanted to focus the spotlight on the remarkable work being done by various initiative partners. But before getting to that work, we do want to hear from a panel of community members who have invested their time over the last 6 months in a series of community visioning events called What's Up Waco. We want to ask them to come up. These conversations, they're not one-time conversations, they're ongoing, but the idea is to start that process at the neighborhood level of identifying strategies and prioritizing those strategies for individual neighborhoods in the community. So with that, I want to welcome Liz Lagawa, our Director of Community Engagement, to the stage to lead that conversation. Liz?
Thank you, Matthew. Good evening. Yes, it is good to be here in partnership with you for the well-being of our city. It is important to us and it means a lot to us that you are here. So thank you for accepting our invitation. We're glad that you're here. So since we are here, first of all, for the purpose of change, I'd like to start with a quote. A wise man once said, if you want to make a change, if you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make a change. Na. End quote. Well, we took that seriously. By we, I mean the Community Engagement Council, the East Waco community, the North Waco community, the South Waco community, and myself. And we decided that taking our leadership to the next level meant showing up. And change is happening because we showed up. So on the screens, as we're having our discussion, you will see the lovely pictures of the Community Engagement Council. Go ahead, take a look. And they're sharing with you their response to a very important prompt, why I show up. And on stage with me are the leaders who are creating change by showing up, who participated in the forward direction of their neighborhoods and community through the What's Up Waco Visioning series. So please join me in welcoming our panel, Mr. Andre Watkins, Mr. Anthony Betters, and Pastor Juan Carrion. Good evening, gentlemen. Okay, so the first question goes to Mr. Andre. Mike. And if you will share with us this, why did you come to What's Up Waco?
Well, the first reason is I was invited.
Thank you for accepting.
The underlying motivation was that we often ask other people to change our situations. We blame legislature, we blame policymakers, we blame councils that we look at as sitting high and looking low. But the people that are where the rubber meets the road seldom seem to take responsibility and initiate that change. For change occurs through interpersonal relationships, and by coming to What's Up Waco, we had awesome conversation, and we got to the root of a lot of things that we want, a lot of actualization about where we are, and the desire where we wanted to be. And that's why I showed up.
Thank you. Mr. Anthony, Same question. Why did you come to What's Up Waco?
Appreciate it. Liz gave me a hard time all 3 sessions.
was acting up.
That wasn't the reason why I showed up. First of all, I just say thanks to Prosper Waco and to Matthew Polk and to Liz and the rest of the team for engaging into this moment and try to change and make Waco a better city. It is so prosperous to see people like her with the energy of her and Matthew and the rest of you guys on the board, how you pour into this city to try to make it a better place. But the reason why I attended What's Up Waco is that in my profession with the city of Waco, I hear a lot from a lot of people. I'm all over the entire city, so I decided to attend all the sessions in East Waco, South Waco, and North Waco, just so I can hear from the people and to try to give them some kind of vibrance in what I had and how I was able to come out the trenches in South Waco to try to build that gap. And one word that I focused on in all those sessions was the word that's called connectivity. Connectivity means to understand where the city's going, and Dr. Nelson is certainly correct. It starts with a vision. You can't connect if you don't have a vision. So in order for us to empower the people, there must be a vision set, and then we can strategize and connect all 3 of those communities together, and then we can have a better city. It's not just about East Waco, South Waco, and North Waco. It's about Waco. So I can continue on with that, but I will stop there and say, hey, connectivity.
Thank you. And Pastor Juan, why did you come to What's Up Waco?
I would have to say, like Mr. Andre, is that I was invited. I was invited first of all, but I had already had some connections with Prosper Waco a couple of years back, and I saw the vision, the mission of what y'all were trying to do. And I told a young man outside earlier today I had 3 cents, and I wanted to be able to give my 3 cents. I wanted to be a voice. Too many times we expect change, but not step forward, take a step of faith and try to be that change. And I think, you know, me being a voice for our community is important to me. It's important not only to my family, but to my neighbors and my community.
Thank you, Pastor Juan. I want you to hold the mic, though. So on the screens behind us is some evidence of the very important work that is happening because we showed up. And I think South Waco is up. And as we've been meeting, these guys are troopers. This was a 6-month-long conversation, and they stayed with it. East Waco, North Waco, and South Waco. It started in March, we ended in September, so I appreciate them showing up. But some really good things are happening. But for your second question, Pastor, I want you to respond to this. Sometimes we think of change as someone else's problem, or we think of a solution as we can't do it. So what are some things that neighbors and community members can accomplish without outside help to promote neighborhood change?
I believe is building a relationship. A mentor of mine told me people think that money makes the world go round. And I believe that it's relationships that make the world go round. If we can come together and everybody has 3 cents, just something to give. It may be a basket with 3 fish and 5 loaves of bread. A lot can be done with that. If we put it together, we act in faith and we step out in faith. So I think it's having that relationship with other people and what can we do together. So I want to say this also is, tenemos que tener una relación. Si todos venimos juntos y empezamos a trabajar juntos, no importa lo que tienes, pero lo que tienes lo estás dispuesto para darlo, mucho se puede hacer con eso.
Thank you. Gracias. Mr. Anthony, you've been to lots of the series, and there are some things that we can accomplish with a little bit of help. So could you share with us what are some things neighborhoods neighbors and community members can accomplish with just a little bit of extra help and support from local entities or external partners?
First, I'd like to say to the pastor, ¿Qué pasó, vato? That means what's happening, okay? All right. Definitely would like to talk about that is the partnership between the communities and also the stakeholders. That's very huge. I think sometimes we miss the opportunities to know that we have our strength right here in this city. We have our strength in North Waco, we have our strength in South Waco, we have our strength in East Waco. But sometimes the stakeholders, including West Waco, but sometimes we fail to realize is that that strength is here, but as stakeholders, to build that bridge, to have that connectivity, the bridge is actually already built, but we have to strengthen that bridge. But in order for us to strengthen that bridge, we have to look amongst our own and maybe consider stakeholders to hire our own. If you can look at TSTC, if you can look at Baylor, if you can look at MCC, you say, you know what, we got the talent in this city. That's how you strengthen a community. You got to pull from the community. Am I right about that? And here's a good example for that. A good example for that is that my oldest son, Anthony Betters Jr., my wife here, Sharon, raise your hand. I can't say that without her, okay? Hey, look, I ain't getting in trouble over that one. You can hang that one up, okay? All right? Our oldest son graduated from Baylor University in 2016. He played football from Baylor. He graduated in corporate communications. He tried to find a job in the city, and he just ran out of luck. So he said, Daddy, I don't know what to do. And he said, I'm gonna venture out to somewhere else, and maybe I may have to go to another state because I can't find a vibrant job to contain me here in this city. So stakeholders, we have to reach out to those that are in this community in order to strengthen the community. So what Tony wound up doing was franchising out to Cedar Rapids, Iowa.
Ooh.
And that's 1,500 miles away. He's the executive director, owner of Visiting Angels, franchise from here to Cedar Rapids, Iowa. That shouldn't happen in this city. Doing very well. He's into 4 months. He said, you know what, I have a little brother. Maybe he needs to do likewise. Do you see how our strength is leaving our community? So he connects to a college in Cedar Rapids, Iowa called Mount Mercy University. My youngest son went out there and was offered a full scholarship to play basketball. Hey, look, I almost said church. Hey, but look, that is a great opportunity, but can you see how the strength is actually leaving our community? So my wife and I have to travel 1,500 miles just to go visit our kids. We shouldn't have that because we have the strength right here in this city. If he can play basketball for Mount Mercy University, he can also play basketball, MCC, but he can play basketball for MCC just as well. And possibility maybe playing for Baylor. But we have that strength right in this city. But yet though our kids are moving to another area because they feel like, you know what, the stakeholders are not embracing us. So stakeholders, when you see that application come across your desk, consider the fact, is that child from Waco? If that child is from Waco, let's strengthen our base. That's how you strengthen the city. Am I right about that? I almost said, can I get an amen?
Thank you, Mr. Betters. Thank you so much. And thank you for sharing. All right, Mr. Watkins, the last question is for you. And sometimes this is the most difficult question for us to answer, especially if we see change as someone else's problem. So what role can local entities or external partners play in neighborhood change that only they can do?
Well, the first thing that I would say is to analyze where most of your workforce comes from and then move your business in closer proximity to that workforce. Not only will you increase the availability for people to come to work, but you'll also strengthen the tax base in the neighborhoods from which the most productive and important part of your business come from. Most of our call center employees are coming from what, North, East Waco? Why are there no call centers in North or East Waco? You will increase your attendance rate exponentially by moving the horse closer to the trough instead of putting the trough across town and telling the horse, come to me to drink. The second thing we need to do is that our businesses in Waco that are hiring, like Mr. Better said, need to open a line of communication with our educators in our various school systems in town and let us know what you need. If we know what you need out of a prospective employee, then we can tailor our curriculum to meet that need, therefore graduating a ready workforce that's ready to go to work on day one. Thank you. My last point, it takes money to educate. If you are an owner, operator, running a business in McLennan County, you pay taxes, we pay taxes. And this is a tough one. If you would like for us to prepare a workforce, dig deep. Give to Guama, Waco, and other academies in various school districts so that we can have more resources, more updated equipment, better computers and software in our schools, the widespread availability of the technology that you expect for a workforce to know. If you have a certain brand of forklift that you use, give it to us so that we can train our children. If you have an RFID system that you need utilized, give it to us so we can train our children. Hospital equipment, if you're looking for technicians to work on it, give it to us and give us the resource so that we can train our children in the same accord that you would expect them to be trained when you're going to get people from Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and bringing them to Waco. And that's all I have.
Thank you so much. So I'm not used to seeing these gentlemen in this way because we hold meetings a little different. There's usually a DJ, there's food, there's dancing, but there's some real work going on. And so because we showed up, change is happening, and that's the most important part. Where are we going to show up? And in this kind of collaborative work, we have to show up a little bit differently. We have to show up, first of all, knowing our voice. Where do you stand? What do you really think about the issue at hand, right? And the second thing that we have to do is we have to show up believing our voice. And last of all, for all the ones who really don't offer their contributions in a meeting, we have to show up with our voice. This is what's happened through What's Up Waco. Thank you, our panelists. Thank you. So, go ahead and pull up your Menti polls or your idea sheets, and we'd like to hear from you. What is your vision for your neighborhood? I will now pass it back to Matthew, and he's going to share with us some projects that our partners have been working on this past year.
Did everybody have time to answer? You got your answer in on the poll? Okay. We have so many slides and videos going on that we couldn't get it to pop up, but we'll get all your answers back to you as soon as we're done here tonight or in the morning. I see the work that Liz and Andre and Anthony and Juan are talking about at the neighborhood level as one rail of a train track. The other rail being what we would call systemic change, which dominates a lot of the conversation around collective impact. And I see it as necessary for those two things to move in parallel if we're going to get where we want to go. So there has to be this work at the community level, the community need, the community voice, people working at the level of their neighborhood. And that needs to inform, just like railroad ties keep the rails of a train track moving in parallel, that has to inform our efforts at educational reform, changing and improving our educational system, improving access to our healthcare system, improving connectivity within our nonprofit sector. Those two have to inform each other at every step of the way Otherwise, the tracks move away from parallel and we don't move forward the way we want to. So let's talk about where we're moving. Let's talk about some of the data, some of the outcomes. That's what we talked about last session. Last time I was up here, I mentioned that collective impact work is grounded in the idea of measurable goals and tracking where we're going as a community. So part of our role as the initiative staff, as the backbone staff, is to keep the community updated on where we stand relative to those goals. Again, we do that through the Prosper Waco website. There's a data dashboard on there through the initiative report and so forth. There are lots of ways. Just exchanged emails yesterday, I think, with Councilman Jim Holmes, who I think is maybe in the room tonight, had a question about some of our data. But let's talk about some of that very quickly. I don't want to lose everybody. I don't want everybody to fall asleep, so we'll try to move through it pretty quickly. But Brittany, our Director of Data and Research, is offended that people might fall asleep during the data discussion. So if you have questions, definitely follow up with us. Brittany can tell you everything you want to know. Some of the data is moving in a good direction, right? Most recent Census Bureau data indicates that the median household income in the city of Waco between 2015 and 2016 went up by $930. That's a number we want to see going up, right? So that's a good thing. Some of the data, some of the outcomes are not going in the right direction. So you look at something like McLennan County's rank among 254 Texas counties in the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation's county health rankings, right? It kind of says where we stack up with every other county in Texas. And our place in two critical categories: quality of life, which includes things like overall physical health, overall mental health, on-time births and birth weight, those kinds of things, declined. We also declined in the category of health behaviors, which includes things like obesity and physical activity rates, smoking rates, alcohol consumption, teen pregnancy, and so forth. We went down in that as well. So not all the data is going in the right direction. Some of it's going in a good direction, some of it's not. What about overall poverty? Again, most recent Census Bureau data shows from 2015 to 2016, the overall poverty rate in the city of Waco declined by 0.7%. Again, we want that to be going down. It's not a dramatic decline, but it continues this trend, right, of economic recovery since the 2008-2009 national economic recession. So it is going in the right direction. Again, some data moving in the right direction, some data not necessarily moving in the direction we'd want it to go. Now, it's not the job of the backbone staff to claim credit when the data moves in the right direction, right? The 5 people on the backbone staff can't single-handedly cause household incomes to go up or cause poverty to decline. That's a community success, right? That's our community moving in the right direction. It's also not our job, I'm glad to say, to shoulder the blame when the data goes in the wrong direction, like the county health rankings. That is the community's data as well. It's our job as the backbone staff to help tell the story so that we as the community can embrace the data, can know that we're going in the right direction when we are, and can circle the wagons and figure out how we do something different in the face of failure when things are not going the way we want to go. Many of you in the room are business leaders. You don't operate your business without a strategy, without a sense of where you want to go, and you certainly don't respond to financial failure by doing the same thing over and over again. And that's the whole point of the Prosper Waco initiative, of having these goals as a community, because we want to know whether we're going in the right direction, whether we're having success, and if we're not, we want to try to do something different to move the needle. So you've probably seen this before, right? We want it to be really easy. We want it to be linear. We want to say, we're starting here, that's where we want to go, we're going to create a strategic plan, and as long as we implement it, we're going to go in a straight line to a great quality of life and no poverty and whatever else it is we're trying to achieve, right? That's not the reality. It doesn't work like what it looks like on the left, it works like what it looks like on the right, but that's the point of having an ongoing conversation as a community, because it's not always going to go in the right direction, or some of it's going to go left and some of it's going to go right, and the point is to dialogue about that on an ongoing basis. And so that's part of our role as the backbone organization, is to work with individual organizations, whether those are nonprofit organizations, whether those are our local school districts, whoever it might be, to think about what are they doing and how are they tracking the outcomes of their programs, their services, their success, and is that contributing, or how is that contributing to the overall goals we have as a community? From there, we're partnering with local funders, whether that's our local foundations, the City of Waco, the Waco-McLennan County United Way, to think about what investments are they making, and how can they know whether those investments are paying off, whether they're contributing to the needle moving in the right direction. We're going to talk in a minute about several of the collective impact projects, the projects that have kind of sprung up through this Prosper Waco conversation. You know, when we build those partnerships that no one organization can do on its own, we want to know whether the needle's moving in the right direction. We want to know whether that investment, that time and energy has been worth it. And ultimately, all of that leads to those big top-level population outcomes. We want to see that needle move on those big things like financial security and health outcomes and so forth. The last thing I'll add in terms of the data, and then we'll move on to talk about some of the cool stuff that's going on, is the idea that we want to have an impact, right? Collective impact, that's the phrase, but we want to do that impact with equity, right? So take, for example, the data around preterm low-weight births in McLennan County. This is a chart that shows that data split up by racial group, African American, Hispanic, white, right? There are thousands, in 2015, thousands of women and children represented in those outcomes who had preterm births, low-weight deliveries that affect children's health over the long term. So if we were to focus on that as a community, on that issue, and helping women have as many healthy births as possible, and we were to lower those numbers by several hundred, that would be a success. That would be a major impact. But if we looked at that impact and we said that the entire amount of that impact came from that right-hand chart, which is the biggest because more white women in McLennan County are having children based on the number of the population. If that right bar was the only one that shrunk, we'd be missing the equity piece. We'd be missing the fact that that left-hand bar indicates that African American women have twice the rate of preterm low-weight births than Hispanic or white women in McLennan County. And we wouldn't be closing the gap between the group that, on a percentage basis, is having the worst outcomes compared to those who are doing better. And there is so much research these days, and many of you know it, that shows that when we close the gaps between those who are having the most success and those who are having the least success, that everybody wins, that our community does better in terms of educational outcomes, in terms of health outcomes, and in terms of economic development. So we want to pair those two things. We want to have that impact on the data. We want to move the needle in the right direction, but we also want to look at how we're closing the gaps on these issues. So let's talk real quickly about a number of projects that initiative partners in this room are implementing towards these goals. We'll start with one that many of you have heard us talk about for the last 2 years and more because it served as the initial model collective impact project for the Prosper Waco initiative. Project Link is a collaboration between Waco ISD, La Vega ISD, MCC, and TSTC with funding from the Rappaport Foundation here locally to work with a cohort of 1,000 students, give or take, 1,000 students in those two school districts from the time they start 9th grade to the time they complete a certificate program or degree program at MCC or TSTC. If they go to other colleges, that's great, that's wonderful, but there is support for them from the time they're in high school through the time if they choose to go to our local schools. Based on the early data, we know that the students who are part of that Project Link cohort are enrolling in college at about a 75% rate from the time they graduate into that next fall, and they're persisting in college from semester to semester at about an 80% rate. That's compared to an overall enrollment average among Waco ISD and La Vega ISD graduates that's hovered just under 50% for the last several years, according to TEA data. And so we know if we focus intensively with a group of students pulled more or less randomly from the middle of the pack, that we can get them to college and hopefully through college, which we'll see over the next few years, at a much higher rate. This is not the only thing going on in terms of college access. A number of you I'm sure read the article in the Waco Trib earlier this summer about the 49 students who were part of the AVID College Success Program at Midway ISD, most of whom are the first person in their family to go to college. All of them received acceptances to four-year colleges. All of them have plans to move on to college. AVID is implemented as a curriculum at Midway, at Waco ISD, at La Vega ISD, at Connolly ISD. You have early college high school programs at Connolly ISD and La Vega ISD that are giving students the opportunity to enroll in college, receive and earn college credits while they're in high school. Waco ISD is doing the same thing with funds that the community approved through a tax ratification election in 2015. There are all these things going on. What we're working on as the P20 Council, the group of educators and industry folks who think about the educational system locally, is how do we measure the collective impact, the total impact of all those different things? And we're using, again, the Project Link process as a marker for how we think about the data and the outcomes and how we track the impact of all these different programs. But we know it's possible to move the needle in the right direction given where we're going. So college and career success is certainly something that all those programs are working on. Another example of that college and career success piece, Waco ISD under Donna McKethan's leadership as Career and Technical Education Director with help from Region 12 and others, has been expanding and kind of refining their summer internship program. In 2016, about 20 juniors, to be seniors participated in that program with the City of Waco, Baylor, and Waco ISD. This past summer in 2017, that number doubled, had about 4 times the number of local employers who participated, giving students the opportunity to get work experience, get their feet on the ground in a job setting, and earn a little money while they do that. In 2018, that program will expand again to include all of the school districts who participate in the Greater Waco Advanced Manufacturing Academy, the Greater Waco Advanced Healthcare Academy programs. And so this really can become a model for our entire community about how exactly what Andre said, right? About how employers invest in local students and get them on that track to not only career success, but that youth employment goal we're talking about. On the education piece, again, Reach Out and Read is something that we talked about, we kind of unveiled at last year's summit through a large donation from the Junior League of Waco in partnership with the Family Health Center. This is an evidence-based program that utilizes the credibility and the influence of doctors and nurses when parents and families bring their young kids in to get that well child check. They talk to them about the importance of literacy, the importance of reading to their child, and what that means in terms of their academic future, and help them start that habit of reading to their kids on a regular basis. Through that process, almost 2,500 books have been handed to parents and grandparents and family members when they bring their child into a family health center clinic. The proof is in the pudding in terms of school readiness, in terms of seeing the needle move on the school readiness of kids, not only in Waco ISD, but in our other local school districts who track that, who measure. They have an assessment, and Mary Conrad can tell you this, that they know when a kid starts at 4 years old in pre-K or at 5 years old in kindergarten, they know whether that student knows what they need to know to be successful in the classroom. So this is a way that our community can help Dr. Nelson, help Dr. Kazanis, help our school districts by helping kids be prepared for school. The Mentor Waco Coalition is a group of over 15 organizations who invest in mentoring in the lives of our children, youth, but in some cases adults as well. They work together on a regular basis to think about what are they collectively doing, how are they training their volunteers, are there issues that their volunteers are dealing with when working with kids and youth and that are similar, and how can they help work on those together. So just last weekend, they hosted a training for their volunteers, their mentors, that dealt with issues like kids who are dealing with depression, kids who have experienced trauma, kids who are homeless or are from immigrant families or undocumented families. How do we, as a community and as volunteers, respond to those situations, and how do these organizations work together to address some of those issues and make the community as a whole more aware of the opportunity to invest in our kids through the avenue of volunteering. What about on the health side? Trying to move quickly here so we have time to get more folks up here on stage. The Waco-McLennan County Public Health District has a Texas Healthy Communities grant They use some of those funds in partnership with the City of Waco Parks and Rec Department to put outdoor exercise equipment in about a dozen City of Waco parks. They put up signs with information about exercises and aerobic activity that can be done in the park. People can take their smartphone and scan a QR code on those signs and pull up beginner, intermediate, advanced exercises that they can do right there in the park. We know from research that Baylor University has done that a number of community members say, I would exercise more if I had somewhere to do it. I may not be able to afford to go to the gym. I may not have time. How can I just exercise given what I've got? And this is a way to help people do that through a collaborative investment from our health district, from our city, and in collaboration with a whole bunch of other organizations as well through the Live Well Waco Coalition. Healthy Waco Women is an initiative being shepherded also by the Public Health District, but that was invested in by the Prosper Waco Women's Health Group, which includes our local healthcare providers, includes a number of community-based organizations. The Waco Foundation invested in research and support from SUMA Social Marketing to understand why more than a quarter of women in our community do not receive basic annual preventative care and how that contributes to the poor birth outcomes that we looked at in a previous slide. The Health District is investing some of their resources into a targeted effort in partnership with our healthcare providers to move the needle on that issue, to better raise awareness, do better outreach, and better connect women in our community to their options in terms of basic preventative health care, regardless of what their insurance situation is. System of care. The folks at MHMR work tirelessly to address mental and behavioral health issues in our community. So do the folks at Family Health Center, at Providence's DePaul, and others. But we don't, in many cases, have a systemic approach to mental health. But through the leadership of the MHMR's Claris Center for Families, in partnership with multiple local school districts, Dr. Robin McDurham was part of this process, the McLennan County Juvenile Justice, the CPS system, our community put together a $3+ million federal grant application that was awarded last year by the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration to provide a truly systemic approach, a community approach to children and youth mental health services in our community. In January of this year, school-based mental health services kicked off. That's now restarted with the beginning of the new school year. Last time we checked, 84 students at this point across 5 school districts were receiving intensive mental health services on their school campus that they might not otherwise receive. The other thing that group is doing is working to develop a children's mental health respite center, a facility where children who have low-level mental health needs maybe don't need to be hospitalized, but need some time in a therapeutic, safe, comfortable setting, can spend time to get some mental health services, and their caregivers at home can step out of that role for a brief period of time, 3 or 5 or 7 days. This is an opportunity for you to participate. If you know of a facility, a residential facility or other type of facility that could be used for that, that group has the funds through that grant to make that happen if they but they're looking for access to a facility that will work for that. You saw in terms of the summit sponsors, a number of our local banks who are immensely dedicated to the success of this community. They support all kinds of things across the community, fundraisers, events like this, like the Prosper Waco Summit. But they're also coming to the table to think about how do we do better in terms of reaching parts of our community, folks who are not part of the traditional banking system, folks who are relying on high-cost financial services like payday loans, like check cashing services, when they could be better served by being part of the traditional financial system. This group of local banks was awarded a small capacity building grant from a national organization called the Cities for Financial Empowerment Fund that runs a national initiative called Bank On. And the goal is to do what we're doing here. We were recognized by that grant for what we're doing locally, which is building these coalitions of organizations, in this case banks, who are working together to align their work to do better in terms of outreach, to do better in terms of financial literacy, financial coaching, and so forth. This moves towards that asset building, that wealth building, that savings goal of the Prosper Waco Initiative. Each of these projects is specifically focused on one of the stated Prosper Waco Initiative goals, and as you can see, each one includes a number of different partners who are at the table trying to do together more than they could do individually as one single organization. Some of you, perhaps all of you, may have received an unsolicited letter from the Prosper Waco Backbone organization about the Waco Power Switch program. This is the kind of innovative thing that wouldn't necessarily doesn't happen in most communities and wouldn't necessarily happen without a focused community effort about what are we trying to achieve in this community. John Kennard, one of our city councilmen, in thinking through the lens of the Prosper Waco Initiative and being part of some of the conversations that we've had, said, what's a simple way to help people increase their savings rate, increase their asset building, their financial security? What we've heard from our nonprofit partners, from community members is, financial literacy is important, financial coaching is important, but sometimes people just don't have enough money to pay their bills, no matter how smart you are. No matter how much financial literacy you have, if you don't have the education or the employment opportunity to make those ends meet, sometimes you're stretching it at the end of the month. And that applies to a lot more of us than, maybe we'd like to raise our hand in the room. But what this is through John's kind of partnership and shepherding, a partnership with a company that works with entire communities to take advantage of the deregulated energy market in Waco, or in Texas. We can all go out and choose which electricity provider we use, and based on the rate they offer. There are state-run websites like powertochoose.org where we can go and look at all the different providers and look at what they offer and look at the different lengths of contracts. Not all of us do that because it can be overwhelming, and a lot of people don't know they can do that. And so what this company does is to partner with entire organizations to say, as a group, as a community, a number of households from a community want to go in together to run an auction where electricity providers come to us and give us their best rate. And they say, here's what we'll offer for your business. And so 924 Waco households registered for this process in partnership with the iChooser company. They ran an auction where a number of energy providers bid. Champion Energy, which is a great energy company that a lot of people already use, won that auction. Based on the market rate of electricity on the day that auction was run a couple of weeks ago, based on the average amount of electricity that the people who registered and expressed interest used, if they were all switch to Champion Energy as their provider, and not all of them will, some of them decide they don't want to, that it doesn't work for them, but that would theoretically put more than $340,000 back in the pockets of people in our community that they could save or that they could spend in some other way. It took very little time and energy on our part as a community, but there's a potential big payoff in aggregate in terms of the money that's staying in Waco and staying in the pockets of households in our community. And just a little plug here, you can actually still participate through the end of October. If that sounds good to you and you want to lower your electricity rate, take one of the flyers on the table or give it to somebody you know. They can still take advantage even if they didn't sign up on the front end as one of these 924 households. Also, full disclosure, there's a revenue sharing piece where Champion Energy pays iChooser for bringing them this business, and iChooser passes some of that revenue along to their local partner. In this case, it's the Prosper Waco Backbone, but our board of directors voted in advance that all of whatever revenue came to the Prosper Waco Backbone would be earmarked and used to support the Community Health Worker Initiative, which we'll hear about in just a second. So not only are we saving people money, but we're potentially generating revenue to support another innovative collaborative project that we have going in our community. Just a couple more, and then I'll stop talking, I promise. Campus Town Waco, a partnership with City of Waco, Baylor, MCC, TSDC, University Center at MCC, including Texas Tech Waco, Tarleton State Waco, Greater Waco Chamber. Did I mention the chamber? Key partners. Working to attract and retain talent, okay? So I'm not going to undermine what Anthony said. We want to keep our own. We also want to keep other folks who come to Waco for college, who get a great degree here and then end up leaving. Over 200 or nearly 200 students over the last year have reached out to the Campus Town Waco team and said, man, Waco is starting to be a pretty cool place. I want to think about staying here after I graduate, but how in the world do I find a job? 33 of those we know have taken a job in Waco because they've worked to some degree with the Campus Town team. If you take the average annual income for someone with a bachelor's degree in Waco, multiply that by those 33, that's $1.34 million in annual wages that are staying in Waco and aren't going to Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I think Cedar Rapids is going to have to be our nemesis from now on. So the Greater Waco Chamber is also working hard to find and launch a platform that will really allow our community to sell itself and attract and retain talent in a much more systematic way. And so they're doing great work on that. Lastly, the Community Loan Center. This is something that was championed by the Waco City Council, incubated by Heart of Texas Goodwill. It partners with local employers to provide employees access to low-cost, short-term loans, the type that they would go down to the corner and take a loan out from a payday loan lender. But they can do it through their employer at no cost to the employer and pay it back at a reduced fees, reduced interest rates, pay it back through their paycheck, through payroll deduction. This is something that potentially can keep a lot of working people in our community from falling into a cycle of debt and repayment to short-term lenders. Over the last 2 years, the Heart of Texas Community Loan Center has issued more than 2,000 loans. This is just to employees of the City of Waco and Waco ISD, the first two partner employers, but there is opportunity here for more employers to partner with this organization to make these loans available to their employees when they need them. Almost $2 million in loans has been made in just 2 years. This becomes a self-sustaining nonprofit business over time as they partner with more and more employers. So there are all these things, innovative, collaborative, things that no one organization could do on its own, that are focused on these initiative goals, the types of things that don't happen in other communities. We hear this, our board of directors hears this, we hear this as staff when we go to conferences around collective impact and so forth. Our community is out in front on these issues. These types of things, none of them is a silver bullet, but these types of projects, the types that we'll hear from in just a minute, these are things that are not happening in other communities, big or small. Waco is out in front on this stuff, and we should all be proud of it. And you can see there are dozens and dozens of partner organizations making this happen. We get to stand up here and tell the story because that's what a backbone gets to do. We get to help support and facilitate and help put these partnerships together. But it is the community doing this as a whole, and that's exciting. So thank you for listening to me ramble on. Let's give a round of applause for the organizations who have talked about this now. Okay, so I promised that I would stop talking and hand the mic over. Well, I'm not going to give you my mic because I'd have to take it off, but we'll hand the two handheld mics over to other community partners. And these are the individuals, the organizations who are making these type of collective impact projects happen on the ground day to day. So we want to hear from them how this stuff works. So we have Dr. Yara William, the Community Health Worker Coordinator at the Waco-McLennan County Public Health District. We have Lisa Ware, who I call Community Member Extraordinaire, who is a community health worker in training. We have Dr. Frank Graves, who is the Dean of Workforce and Public Service at McLennan Community College. Dr. Dick Hinckley, who's the President and CEO of CORD, which is what most people call it. It's technically the Center for Occupational Research and Development. We have Jamie Schmidt, the Program Manager of the Reintegration Program through McLennan County and Heart of Texas Region MHMR. We have Tiffany Fry, the Director of Workforce Development at Heart of Texas Goodwill.
Workforce Development Director.
Workforce Development Director, close enough. And Tammy Stevens, Director of Client Services at Caritas of Waco. I got pretty close with all those names and titles. All right. So we have 3 different projects that we want to talk about represented here. We have the McLennan County Community Health Worker Initiative. We have MCC's Work Readiness Certificate, and we have the Waco Employer Resource Network on the end, okay? And what we want to emphasize, again, that these are collective impact projects. They're not just one thing that one organization is doing. And so we're going to kind of move back and forth and talk with each project about how it works. So, Dr. William, can you describe the Community Health Worker Initiative and what Prosper Waco Initiative goals it's addressing?
Sure. Well, I'll start by describing what a community health worker is. A community health worker is a frontline public health worker. This is someone that is a trusted member of the community that they serve. What that means is that they share the same background, they speak the same languages, share the same culture, and because of that, they have this trust and rapport already built within their community. So the McLennan County Community Health Worker Initiative is a community-based health program that is really focusing on access to care. Through this program, a group of community members from 4 zip codes in Waco, 767, 04, 05, 06, and 07, and they're over there, hi, have been hired as community health workers, and they're currently going through their training to become state certified. What that means is once they're certified community health workers, they're able to go out and do outreach. They connect people to resources, they provide health education, and we've talked a little bit about bridges and bridging the gap between the community and different systems. So when we think of a community health worker, we think of somebody that bridges the gap between the community and the healthcare system. They assess somebody's needs, they identify their barriers, and they start linking them to health and social service resources out in the community, advocating for them and supporting them, and educating them on how to establish a healthy lifestyle. And so we're focusing on access to care, but it really touches on all of the different health goals within the Prosper Waco health topic.
Great description of the McLennan County Community Health Worker Initiative. Dr. Graves, would you mind telling us about the work readiness certificate that you have helped develop at MCC?
So the work readiness certificate is a certificate designed to impact the employability skills for our workers in our area. And so you get a group of employers in the room and you ask them what are their gaps in their skills for their workers. Many times it'll revert back to those soft skills that those folks are lacking. So what we were able to do is an industry informed curriculum based on what those needs are for those entry-level workers. And basically we went out, we visited with them, and we'll talk a little bit later about the curriculum development process, but we asked them, what does that look like, and what do those individuals need? And it boiled down to some of the basic things that we talk about over and over again, with, the communication skills, the listening skills, the honesty, integrity that many times they lack. And we're able to boil that down into 2 basic areas, which is getting ready to work, or the work ethic, and then after you get the job, and how do you maintain a job. So we broke that down into several modules, and we've completed our initial pilot, and we'll talk more about that as we go through, but the initial pilot, and then have the next steps after that as far as implementation.
And we did not cue Andre Watkins to talk about what employers need to do, but he hit the nail on the head a couple of different times with some of his comments, and this shows it with the work readiness certificate. Tiffany, will you talk about the Waco Employer Resource Network, what it is, and how it's connected to the Prosper Waco goals?
Absolutely. I'll first start by explaining what an employer resource network is. It's a national model that's essentially a collaboration among employers, social service agencies, and institutions of higher education to help entry-level and low-income employees retain employment when life challenges arise, such as childcare, transportation, housing, et cetera, that threatens their job stability. And so essentially over the past 2 years, we've been working as a group to adapt that model to Waco, hence Waco Employer Resource Network. So if you hear me say WERN, that's what I'm referring to, because it's kind of a mouthful. We have a number of agencies involved, Mission Waco, Caritas, Frank's been involved, Jamie's been involved with our program from the get-go, so you can see how there's been some cross-collaboration here. And we really developed 2 main broad goals. One, of course, is to build better collaboration among organizations that work with job seekers to get these folks placed into employment. But on the other hand, we really want to work with employers to help them retain their workforce. That's really where we want to see the needle moving forward. So in order to accomplish those 2 goals, our group identified the need to hire 2 full-time positions, one being a liaison whose role is to facilitate the network, On the other hand, help coordinate the agencies involved, but also be a single point of contact for employers needing to refer employees that are facing personal challenges. In addition to that, we also found the need for a success coach. This person's role is to provide those services to the employees so that they can retain employment. And we were able to receive funding from the city of Waco to fund these 2 positions. We were very honored at Goodwill to have been chosen to house the liaison position. We hired a wonderful liaison named Katie Scholes, and Caritas was selected to house the success coach. They've hired a great guy named Spike Burt, and we're really looking forward to that. We've kind of done a soft launch in September, and we're currently working with the national network in order to move the ball forward.
There's not a better name for a success coach than Spike, right? So,
Right.
obviously, all of these projects involve a number of different partners, but the Employer Resource Network especially involves not only social service agency partners, but employer partners. So we want to hear from one of those right now.
Good afternoon. My name is Scott Vernon. I am the Human Resources Manager for Domtar Personal Care here in Waco. Here at Domtar, we champion health, dignity, and comfort. So we wanted to get involved with the Employer Resource Network a couple of years ago because we wanted to carve out and identify some opportunity for those folks in our community that were in need. So we identified a couple of roles, and we were flexible with our work schedule and making some accommodations for those people that might have had childcare issues or even transportation issues to come out and join our team. We got involved initially to be part of our community and to make wins where we could. Now, I can't solve all the issues that are facing the challenges within our marketplace, but where we can, we want to partner both with Prosper Waco as well as the Resource Network in order to make opportunities for people in our community. Most recently, I partnered with Katie and Spike to talk about kind of our history and our experience with the Resource Network and the changes that we've seen, and really kind of brainstorm some ideas of what we can do going forward and how I can help them and they can help me in the future. And I'm really looking forward to those opportunities as they come about.
Okay, so Tammy, the idea of an Employer Resource Network is really a partnership between employers and the agencies in the community, really building that bridge, to go back to what Yara said. Can you give an example of how that has worked?
Yes, definitely. Okay, it is a bridge. That's what it is all about. It's a partnership. And first of all, what I want to say is, I want to say thank you to everyone that has put in so much time and energy and all the work to get to this point, so we can say where we're at now. Thank you to Prosper Waco, City of Waco for the grant, and thank you so much to Tiffany and Goodwill for being our partners. We now have 12 signed on partners that have committed to use our services. And so what the services are about, they're kind of like what Tiffany had said, but the services is connecting the employer and the employee to our services. The employer they have invested time and energy and finances into an employee. And so they don't want to lose that employee. And there may be something that's going on with them, and they're very valued. But there's something going on with them that they're not at their best. And so they talk with them and see what is happening. Maybe it may be transportation. It may be childcare. It may be a situation that they've lost their housing and they've become homeless. They're very, very valued, like I said, and so they want to keep this employee because it is a win-win situation to not fire and to rehire and to invest again. And so, that's how we've gotten started, and that's how the connection is. Spike and Katie, they have connected with some of the agencies that we have talked about. And so, we've gotten some referrals. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of those here next time I come around. And so, but that connection, that's what it's about. Everybody connecting with one another, building that bridge.
Great, and so you're working not just with Goodwill, but with a number of agencies who are in this room, whether it's Salvation Army, on down the line, to make sure that connectivity of those services and support of working folks in the community is there.
Definitely it is.
Jamie, in terms of the work readiness certificate, the reintegration program is one of the partners who's at the table. we talked just a little bit about what you do at the reintegration program, but also why you partnered with Frank and Dick in the work readiness certificate.
Okay. The reintegration program actually came about as a collaboration of concerned stakeholders in the community who had an interest in reducing the recidivism rate in McLennan County for individuals who are being released from either prison or the county jail. So it was, stakeholders like yourselves that actually brought our program together and brought it to fruition. So what we do is we actually go into the McLennan County Jail and we provide services and social skills to involve the individuals that are being released to ensure that they're successful once they're released. Once they're released, we do help them with housing, employment, and any of the needs that they may have, whether it be financial, clothing, food, things like that. So we partner with the stakeholders and the other service agencies here to make sure that they have what they need to be successful members of McLennan County. What we have done here with the Workforce Readiness Certificate Program is they came into the jail, provided the training to our individuals, and we recently had one individual who was released, and the first thing that he did when he was released was come to our office and brought his certificate. That's the only thing he brought in was his workforce readiness certificate and said, what employers can I go to that are gonna hire me? And he had two that had come out and spoken to our individuals in the jail, and he named those two. These are the ones that I wanna start with. And so he has actually, I believe, applied to both of those locations, so.
Great. Connecting the dots, for sure. Lisa, will you talk a little bit about, as a community health worker, some of the partners that you're connecting with?
Okay, some of the partners that we are connecting with is Baylor University Office of Community Engagement, Baylor Scott and White Hillcrest Medical Center, community and faith-based organizations, Heart of Texas Community Health Center, Prosper Waco, Providence Healthcare Network, Texas Area Health Education, and the Waco Foundation, of course. Now, as far as partners, we would like for everybody to be a partner, okay? Not just the ones.
The door's open, okay.
The door is open. And you can do this by just spreading the word of mouth, Tell your neighbors, tell your friends, tell your family, your co-workers, your church members. Let them know that we have a new program, the community health workers. And everybody's talking about bridges and connecting bridges. Well, we are the bridge. The community health workers, we will help navigate and get the people to the services that they need. I have lived in Waco all of my life, been in the healthcare profession for over 30 years, and I am just now finding out through the training that we're going through some of the services that our agencies provide. And so in some of the communities, if they don't know about the service, they just do without. And we have too much to offer for them to do this. So just as an example, we toured Meals on Wheels. All of my life, I just knew that, they delivered meals to the needy. And I just found out real recently that they also provide transportation for a nominal fee, $3 each way. That's cheaper than a cab. They also provide minor home repair. You can get supplemental feedings for half the price. So there's so much to offer. And like I said, if people don't know about the resources, then they won't utilize it. And so that's what we're here for. We are going to bridge that gap and hopefully make McLennan County and Waco one of the model cities for everybody else to follow.
Oh, I like that last part. That's ambitious. Waco is a model. So these collective impact projects are focused on the Prosper Waco Initiative goals. They involve partnership all the way down and back. They're also, true to collective impact, tracking outcomes, focused on data. So Yara, can you talk about the data that you're tracking as the community health worker coordinator?
Well, this program is still in the beginning stages, but one of the things that we've been doing and will continue to do is collect data, especially from our healthcare partners. We're looking at data from the hospitals, looking at the emergency department data to see who are the high utilizers. These are the individuals that are going to the hospital 4 or more times in a year. What are the reasons that they're going and getting admitted to the hospital? And a lot of that information will help guide us in what sort of efforts we need to do, what sort of education programs we need to focus on as our community health workers are out in the community making those connections and bridging that gap.
Great. Dick, what about the work readiness certificate? What data did you use to develop that, and then what are you looking to track as you implement it?
Right. Well, Matt's looking away over there. Another partner was the Chamber. All the way through this, they've been working with us. The first data started with the unemployment rate in Waco, 4%. That's getting close to full employment. So the employers here are finding it a little harder to find qualified workforce. They'll tell us the technical training levels are pretty good, but the workforce readiness is not. We had an employer tell us we hire them for their technical skills, we fire them for the lack of employability skills. Through the Chamber, we pulled together an initial focus group of 7 employers to talk about what are their employability readiness concerns. And I tell people they vomited all over the room. They just poured out the stories of what is happening to them and how hard it is for them to keep employees due to lack of the skills. We took the focus group results, and with the help of the research department of McLennan Community College and a list of 136 employers from the Chamber, we did a survey that went out to validate the data that we had collected in the focus group. And that gave us what we needed to start curriculum development. And all the way through the process, we've involved the employers with it. Outcome, we don't have it, well, we have an outcome. We have, this is not a seat time certificate. You have to achieve a certain level. 2 of the students in the first cohort did that. Employers are part of that rating scale for the students. And the ultimate outcome is going to be how many were employed as a result. Can employers tell us someday, it could take a year or so, that they had a return on investment of hiring someone with this certification, with these better skills? They have reduced cost of turnover, reduced cost of hiring as a result. So the stats, the graduation rates, and ultimately reports and data we collect from the employers will be our proof.
Okay. Tiffany, what about you very quickly? What are some of the data points that the Employer Resource Network is tracking?
My favorite question. So our results-based accountability is really going to be focused on retention. So of course we're keeping track of the number of services we provide, the types of service that the Success Coach provides, but we want to look at after they've received those services, what does the retention look like at 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 180 days, 365 days after they've received these services, because that's really where we need to see the impact to show employers that the services that the Success Coach provides is of value.
Great. Tammy, you mentioned you wanted to give us a success story, and that kind of leads into how the community broadly can support this collaborative project.
Definitely. Okay, so let me tell you how you can get involved, connecting the dots. So I'm going to tell you first about a story that we had a referral from one of our partner agencies that we were working with. And so, you know, this project is very new, but we already have successes. And so I'm going to call this person Bob. Bob is a fictitious name. It's not his real name. But he was referred after Katie, after Katie and Spike had a meeting with the agency. And they had told them what we do and how we can help them be able to have job retention and keep their employees. And so the referral was made, and it was made to Spike, and he started working with this person. And this guy, he had actually been employed for 11 years at a particular place, 11 years, so he was very valued. But he was having some difficulties, and after meeting with Spike, Spike realized that this guy had become homeless. You would never think that, but he had become homeless, and he was sleeping on his mother's kitchen floor. So we started connecting those dots and connecting with other agencies, just doing simple things like bus passes in the beginning, doing financial counseling and things like that with him to try to get his finances on track. We helped him get into an apartment. He's now in an apartment. and his employer is happy, and he is happy. So connecting those dots, how can you get involved? Everybody has a purpose and a place, whether you're an agency, whether you're a community person that works in the community, whether you are a social service agency, whether you are a company, everybody has a place, whether it is volunteering time, whether it is giving funds, because we have to have funds in order to continue this project. It is successful at this point. We want it to continue on. We want to continue to be able to be a driving force in the community. Also, call Caritas, or call, yeah, let me tell you how to contact me, contact Caritas, contact Tiffany. Get with us, make that contact, and we'll get with you and explain everything. Thank you.
All right. And Frank, what about the work readiness certificate? How can community partners plug in there?
So the intent of developing this was not to replace with the good work that's already done in the community. It was certainly to enhance it. So our next steps are we're going to go back, we're going to take the feedback from the pilot and tweak the curriculum, and then we want to reach out to all the nonprofits that are already doing similar type things and see how can we embed this into your programs to enhance what we're doing, because it doesn't really belong to MCC, it belongs to certainly the community. So the agencies, the nonprofits, and even the school districts, we want to certainly reach out and see how that fits. Then from an industry standpoint, our curriculum is very much designed for industry input. So we look for those industry partners to come on board to certainly be a part of those cohorts so that they can provide feedback to those students those participants that are certainly in the program. We talked about this word of collective impact, and I've certainly been gracious enough that we have the opportunity to work with Dr. Hinckley and Jamie through this process, and it would not have happened because when we got it there, we got it developed and said, well, where do we need to pilot? Jamie stepped up, she brought those students and the participants in there, and certainly, that's the true essence of what this means. Us three couldn't have not done it single-handedly, but together we're certainly able to achieve that. Matthew, you said that clock wouldn't be too big of an issue, but we've got a clock ticking, so that's why we're talking faster. Okay.
You're doing great, Frank.
All right.
Don't worry about the clock. I'll worry about the clock. Just so you know, we are on track to get out of here at 8:30, which we told you you would. There's a lot of information, a lot going on, a lot to absorb, but we're on track, so we're okay. Lisa, very quickly, what are ways that you think folks can support your work?
Well, like I said, just word of mouth, passing on the information, letting everyone know that we do have this service, and as well as when you see the clients, make sure you make your referrals, because they may come and see you for one specific thing, but as well as I do, they may have 99 problems, but finding the proper resource should not be one of them. We have community health workers in place. So if you've satisfied their condition and they have other things going on, please direct them to Dr. Williams or Janice so they can get the proper resources needed.
Thanks. The point here was that these are projects that would not happen if any one organization tried to take them on their own. They are focused on big picture goals. They are collaborative. They're more than any one organization can do. They are focusing on specific data, on tracking their impact and outcomes, and there is opportunity for more partners in the community as a whole to plug in and support. We want to give the last word to actually somebody who's not on the stage, but somebody who's gotten involved in this work and wants to talk about the Community Health Worker Initiative as well.
My name is Dominique Corsi. I am a Wacoan, proud Wacoan. I'm married, 3 children. I have various numbers of community service I've done throughout the community. I'm also working on my own nonprofit, which is Health Ministries. And I just have a passion for the community and seeing things come together. Okay, initially, what drove me to apply to be a community health worker, I came pre-recommended through Shirley Langston. But as I learned more about the program and the initiative, it worked one-on-one, hand-in-hand with my passion for women, children in the community. So I thought, why not? what excites me most about being a community health worker is being able to be on the front line. I kind of thought of it about being in the Army, going to war. You're on the front line, you're educating, you're getting people information, and you're connecting them. You're really helping reducing the gap within the community. And being able to do that is a real passion of mine, to help people know and have knowledge of where to go and to get things done. I think the Community Health Worker Initiative will have a massive impact on the Waco communities, being able to reduce the gap between the health system and the community, really getting their voices heard. Doctors' visits will be more valuable because they can educate them on something. If it's not understood, they can always reach out to us and get more information on that also. When I think about that, we'll really be meeting our clients, the community, where they are.
So I think, did I see Dominique over there and our other community health workers? And thank you to the folks who are just up here, not for being here tonight, not just for being here tonight and talking with us, but for doing this work on a day-to-day basis. All right, that was a lot in terms of where we are. None of that is a silver bullet. That's the point of collective impact. We have to be moving down multiple paths in tandem at the same time to try to address some of these issues. But we have a sense of where we are, some of the things that are in the implementation phase that are going, and the many different partner organizations that are making those things happen. We're going to have a shorter section here as we end to talk about where we're going. We want to talk about some of the promising projects that have been worked on during 2017, but will really bloom in 2018, and we'll start to see the implementation phase over the next year. So I'm going to hand it over now to Forrest Alton. He's the co-founder and president of the 1,000 Feathers, a consulting firm out of South Carolina, works with communities across the country to address the impact of teen pregnancy on their communities. We have Dr. Jackson Griggs, who is the assistant director of the Waco Family Medicine Residency Program and a practicing physician at Family Health Center. And then we have Kevin Renoir, a recent Baylor University graduate who's been working with City Center Waco to develop and support entrepreneurs in Waco. So they're each going to take a brief minute to talk about what they're up to and what they think is coming in 2018. Then we'll wrap it up with how all of us can continue to stay involved, and we'll be out of here. And again, we are on time, Frank. Forrest.
Good evening. You all are a brave audience to stick it out through lots of wonderful information. Do me something quick here. I'm going to go off script, which is going to freak Christina out, but it'll be okay. Just one quick stretch. It's been a long night. Stand up quick and do one of these for me quick. Wave your hands in the air real quick, everybody. Okay, that's enough. Sit back down. I just also have to tell you that when I mentioned to my wife I was flying out here tonight, she said, "That's a long way to Waco for 7 minutes." I said, "Dear, don't worry. I promise you I'll shake hands with everybody in that room tonight." So I appreciate you allowing me to meet that goal as well. I want to thank Prosper Waco for giving me the opportunity to spend just a couple minutes with you. And because I may be the only non-Wacoan to take the stage tonight, if not the only non-Wacoan in the room, I just want to say, wow. This is really, really special. And I want you all to take a second to take it all in. I have the privilege and honor of traveling the country doing work in different communities, and there just aren't a lot of places in the country doing this. So take a second to take it in, for sure. I was specifically asked about a year ago, doing work with Waco Foundation and also Prosper Waco, to take a little bit of a deep dive into the issue of preventing teen pregnancy. I wanted to show just a couple stats and figures to you quickly. The issue of teen pregnancy is one that permeates in our community because it touches so many other issues. For example, we know that only about 38% of teens who become mothers before they turn 18 will graduate from high school before they turn 22. Only about 2% will ever graduate from college. We know that women who experience an unplanned pregnancy, and many teen pregnancies are unplanned, are 2 times more likely to lack prenatal care. We know that the risk of infant mortality is 50% higher among teen mothers. We've heard lots of conversations and talk tonight about health and financial security and poverty. And I would suggest to you that in communities that are really serious about improving health outcomes and improving wealth and improving family stability and all those sorts of things, those communities also figure out a way to get really serious about preventing children from having children. And that's exactly what we were exploring here in Waco. I'll show you just a little bit about what the data looks like here locally. You can see that across all demographics in Waco, or in McLennan County, excuse me, the teen birth rate is higher than in Texas and higher than in the US overall. And perhaps more importantly, we see very uneven distribution. And Matthew showed some slides earlier that showed issues of inequity. Teen pregnancy and teen birth rates are another example of this. And one of the things we learned really quickly across the country, and it is true here in Waco, is that we can't have conversations about preventing teen pregnancy unless we're willing to also have conversations about race and equity and access and justice, right? We know that this work is messy, but we also know that here in McLennan County, 388 babies were born to teen mothers just last year. That works out to about 1 birth to a teen mother every day in this county. So we know that we have to do something. Usually at this point in the presentation is when everybody in the crowd says, wow, that is a pretty serious issue and somebody should do something about that. Right? Tonight, what I hope we can convince you of, along with all the other conversations we're having, is to leave this room thinking, wow, that is a serious issue, as are many of the others we've talked about, and I'm going to do something about that. Because that is part of the definition of collective impact, is all of us finding a role to play. For the better part of the last 7 months, supported by Waco Foundation and with lots of lifting from Matthew and Brittany and others on the Prosper Waco team, we have taken 3 key sources of data. Number 1, the existing programs and existing data that existed in this community. We combined that with voices of community members that we were able to gather through conversations and interviews and interactions, and combined those with best practices in the field, and ultimately merged all of that together to come up with a list of 5 recommendations that we're presenting to the community. Those 5 recommendations are followed by a series of thoughts and action steps and commentary. I think you have on your table, there are a few copies floating around of the Path Forward report that you might peek at. But just in summary, really quickly, as the clock does tick in front of you, it's quite intimidating. I would offer to you the 5 priority recommendations that are part of this report that we have submitted to Waco Foundation and frankly to you, the broader community. First is the suggestion to be conscious of creating a tiered approach as we're thinking about preventing teen pregnancy. That is, what we're doing with 13, 14-year-olds might look different than what we're doing with 18 and 19-year-olds. That is to say, it's all right in our community to say, we wish the schools were doing more, and we wish parents were doing more, and we wish the faith community were doing more, and we wish the business community were doing more. It's not an either-or conversation. It means in a tiered approach, it's okay to say, we wish our young people were getting a stronger message that abstinence is their first and best choice, and making sure that young people who are having sex have access to the reproductive health services they need. We've talked about the data a little bit. The second recommendation is to frame this issue in a health equity frame and view it with a health equity lens. Like so many other health issues in McLennan County, rates of teen pregnancy and childbearing differ greatly across race and geography in this town. The third recommendation is to improve access to reproductive health care. We spent a lot of time surveying the landscape and found the existing healthcare network as it relates to young people accessing services to be fragmented, disconnected, and frankly a little confusing to navigate across a number of providers. Number 4, there's obviously a need to invest in training and capacity building programs. And number 5, which really does speak to the spirit of Prosper Waco, is to make sure that the approach is holistic, integrated, and focused. That is to say, there are lots of nonprofits and healthcare facilities and schools and colleges and others, community health worker programs and everything, doing great work in this community. Bringing them all together and incorporating them into this conversation indeed can make a difference. I told several of you tonight when I got here that it's hard to believe because it has been so much work over the last 7 months, but writing the report's actually the easy part. Now the real question is, will we take this report as a community and have the political will to implement and do something about this issue? And so in closing, I'll read you what in fact is the last line of the last page of this report. Most importantly, a commitment is needed from you, the members of the greater Waco community, without whom the long-term, systemic, sustainable change needed will not be possible. A lot can be said about a community by looking at how it takes care of its children. Making sure its children aren't having children is one of the most important things we can do. I look forward to working with you next year and bringing a better and further down the line update as we continue this project. Thank you.
Can I use this instead? Where is it? All right. Go. Is it on? Ah, okay. So I'm going to start with a confession, if that's okay. Matthew mentioned I'm a family doc from the Family Health Center. Today was a hard day in clinic, and like a lot of days in caring for the socioeconomically disadvantaged, I felt really depleted. I felt that sort of feeling of dejection of like, I don't know that there's hope. And in coming here with you, I feel a little bit like Elisha's naive servant who, you know, the army's closing in on the village, and the servant's feeling scared and thinking, sure, you know, death is certain. And Elisha says, Lord, open his eyes. And what he sees is a host of angels, horses, and chariots of fire that are surrounding them. And you guys are that. And it's really encouraging. It feels like together we can do this. And so that was, oh, Brady didn't start the timer. I'm so happy about that. That was a freebie. So I want to share with you a little bit about what we're doing at the Family Health Center. Prosper Waco has been critical to this effort, and so we've been really, really helpful for all of their help. First, the Family Health Center is a federally qualified health center. We have over 50,000 patients, and 80% of those patients fall below the federal poverty guideline. We do mostly primary care, but we also do a good deal of dental care and behavioral health care as well. We have 14 operational sites, and those sites are strategically placed in low-income neighborhoods. When you think about medical care, usually you're thinking about care for the body. You're thinking about the chemicals in the form of medications and surgical interventions to care for the body. But health and illness are far more than, of course, just the body. And I think this is intuitive to everybody here. It involves emotions and health behaviors and values and beliefs, everything that makes a person a person. That it's not just an organ that is suffering, it's not just tissue that's suffering, but it's an organism, and it's more than just an organism, it's a human being, a meaning-making creature who finds himself in the midst of disease and striving for help. But even more than just thinking about that as an individual who lives in isolation or lives in a vacuum, of course, an individual lives in a context, in a neighborhood. They go to work. They exist in a system of education. They're in a neighborhood. They're in a physical environment. And of course, all of these things contribute to the individual's health. And then there's broader, kind of more abstract contributions to health as well. And historically, I've been I think naive to think that really it's that biomedical care that makes the difference. That if we just get our biomedical care right, that we'll see a big change in health outcomes. But interestingly, quality care and access to care only account for about 20% of quality of life and length of life. Another 30% is health behaviors. So whether you smoke, or if you have a problem with heavy drinking, or if you use illicit substances, or how you eat, or your sexual habits. Another 50%, though, another 50% are these social determinants of health. So the social environmental factors, your education, your employment, your income, your zip code, and of course the physical environment. Policies and programs, of course, impact these health factors, which ultimately lead to these health outcomes of interest. So why do I give you that background? At the Family Health Center, we have always considered the community one of our patients. But there have been variable times where we have gotten kind of outside of those four walls of the exam room to contribute. And the community-centered health home is a lens through which to see how to in fact do that. How do we get outside of those four walls to contribute to the work that is already being done in Waco? How can we play a role in that? How can we help address social determinants of health? As critical as the sick care system is, as valuable as excellent hospital care and primary care and subspecialty care is, we want to be a part of contributing to the healthcare system, which might involve thinking in some novel ways. We're just starting off this process, and I want to share with you four new initiatives at the Family Health Center that kind of represent this way of thinking. One is our new wellness center. We know from our community health needs assessment that exercise is low, obesity is on the rise in our community, and so, and of course from the medical literature we know that exercise is as beneficial as some of the most common medications that we use for common chronic conditions. Exercise does as much as some of the most common medicines that we use. We've partnered with Baylor University's Robbins College Health and Human Performance to build this wellness center. They have actually supplied our equipment and have offered us some excellent graduate students who are tailoring exercise therapy for the patients that the physicians are now referring to the wellness center. And our patients are wildly excited about this. When I mentioned that we have a free exercise facility and they're going to get direct care from someone who knows exercise and knows chronic illness, our patients are thrilled. Striking, but every low-income person has around 2 to 3 unmet civil needs that contribute to health barriers. Well, you know, those low-income individuals are already coming through our doors. They already feel safe at the Family Health Center. So why not screen those individuals for these unmet needs and create a seamless relationship with Greater Waco Legal Services, Kent McKeever's nonprofit law firm, so that these patients can get help for these needs that are interfering with their health. And we've done just this, and we're really excited about it. We're just beginning that process this next month. So interestingly, in terms of health behaviors that lead to premature death, risky eating has eclipsed tobacco smoking. And so as we're thinking about how do we help with this, we know that if patients can understand that food is medicine, that maybe they can begin to change some of their habits. So we started prescribing fresh produce in April using a collaboration with World Hunger Relief. The World Hunger Farm provides the fresh produce, the physicians write the prescriptions, and that same day a patient can go and get a box of locally sourced fresh produce and take it home. There's recipe cards in it so that they can immediately make a meal from that fresh produce. And they've had the recommendation and the training from the physician. We're trying to build this sort of sense that food is medicine. And we've distributed 1,000 boxes. And we've got 6 more seasons that's grant funded through the Episcopal Health Foundation, so we're really excited about this. And then finally, we are starting an urban garden process. The Family Health Center has a lot of land immediately proximal to some of the clinics. There's good data on how urban gardens impact communities in terms of their health. And Amy Lillard, who's the director of the Urban Garden Coalition, shared this in a meeting the other day, and I loved it, and so I put it on the slide so you all see it. She said, community gardening is 90% community and 10% gardening. We're wanting to help the community by collaborating with Urban Garden Coalition and use some of the property next to our clinics for the community in which our clinics exist. And so, to reiterate, we wouldn't have been able to do this without Prosper Waco and without our number of collaborators in the community. So we feel very, very grateful, and we're optimistic about the future.
How you guys doing? You don't sound too good. How are you guys doing? Good, great. Thanks for sticking around. I'll be very brief, and I just want to introduce to you something called the Startup Waco Initiative. The premise is this: entrepreneurship is the lifeblood of an economy. As Waco continues to grow economically, we must be mindful that entrepreneurs and the businesses that they start are going to be a large part of that economic development and that growth. Whether it's a new coffee shop, a new bakery, or an innovative new technology company, startups contribute heavily to the health of our economy and the health of our city because of the jobs that they create, the economic activity that creates, and the cultural vibrancy that's increased because of that stuff. So when entrepreneurs have a chance to try to start businesses, we see cities succeed. It's like magic, right? Startups make our city better, so that begs the question, how do we make our city better for startups? How do we create the kind of environment where it's a vibrant ecosystem of resources and support for those individuals who are brave enough and smart enough and sometimes crazy enough to try to start a new business? So over the past 10 months, we've put together a team. The City of Waco, universities in Waco, the Chamber of Commerce have kind of come together and said, behind an individual who some of you might know, Tate Christensen at Barsh Construction, and said, how do we create this kind of environment in Waco? Let's explore this idea. So we've put together a team of people from the public sector, private sector, philanthropic sector, and academic sector. So that's city and county government, chambers of commerce, local foundations, and higher education institutions as well. And we've said, how are we going to tackle this issue? We formed a collaboration between these sectors, and we've done some research. We've visited other cities, including Nashville, Tennessee, Greenville, South Carolina, Seattle, Washington, and most recently Cincinnati, Ohio, and have just kind of done some spying and looked at what other cities are doing in this area. And we've also interviewed entrepreneurs locally and resource providers to get a clear picture of where we are right now and where we could be in the future. And we've realized actually some common threads. In the cities that are doing this properly, we usually realize that there's two things. One, the community leaders are ready and willing to collaborate on innovative new projects. Two, there's a formalized strategy for this kind of thing. It's not just a thing that happens on accident. People are trying to make it happen. And three, there's some sort of geographical, physical location that's understood that this is where the entrepreneurship, innovation, collaboration happens. So with this knowledge, we decided to kind of give it a shot, and we created something called the Startup Waco Initiative. And the mission of the initiative is to empower entrepreneurs, innovators, makers, and dreamers to create the Waco of the future by building and growing successful businesses. And the way that we hope to do that is by maximizing the support that's already here in Waco and making sure that we're communicating amongst ourselves to help the client, which is the entrepreneur, better. 2, find out what support we're missing. What do entrepreneurs need that we don't have in Waco, and let's fill those gaps. And 3, how do we foster a culture of entrepreneurship and innovation in this city that kind of bleeds throughout. And we want to do that through creating programs and events that kind of foster that culture of entrepreneurship. So we've got the collaborative leadership, and we've already built some sort of a framework for a formalized initiative. So what are we going to do about the geographical location thing that I mentioned earlier? The team has already put into motion some ideas and designs for what we're calling Hustle Co-working. It's kind of what we want to call like a public campus for entrepreneurship. Here are some of the specs of the place. It's 5,000 square feet, 77 total desks inside, conference room, meeting rooms, etc. And the location will be at the Woolworth Suites on Austin Avenue, 605 Austin. And there's potential to expand into the rest of the building as well. The gist of it is that it's kind of, it's this place where entrepreneurs can come to collaborate, innovate, and get stuff done, a place for people to hustle. I like the name. I thought it was a pretty cool name. So, to fully solve these issues, the Waco community needs to come together kind of like we're in this room right now. We have to collaborate to create a better ecosystem of support and resources for all of our entrepreneurs, whether it's a coffee shop, bakery, tech company, whether you're white, black, or Hispanic. All of our entrepreneurs have potential to create the Waco of the future by starting successful businesses. So how are we going to support them? Imagine a Waco where you drive around downtown and there's no such thing as an unoccupied storefront. Imagine a Waco where some of the smartest people that live in our city don't feel like they need to go somewhere else to get a job or try something new. We keep them here, and they're trying their stuff here. Wouldn't that be really cool? I think that'd be really cool. So why not work together on this? If you can, if you want to, and if you find yourself to have the capacity to do so, please share your thoughts with us. This is just the beginning. We want to shape the vision of this. We want to build the Waco of the future entrepreneurially. We want to change the culture into something entrepreneurial and innovative. So please, contact us. My name's Kevin. That's my email address. My partner's name is Jake Cockrell, works at the Chamber. That's his email address. And there's tons of other people on this. Some of you guys are in this room, and I want to name all of you, but I don't think I have the time. But I want you guys to give them a round of applause, and a round of applause to the entrepreneurs in the community who are crazy enough to start businesses. Thank you, guys.
We're almost done. There I am. We're almost done. We said we'd get you out of here by 8:30. We're going to do it. Kevin just wanted to prove how many connections he has by dropping all the business cards in his binder all over the floor. So he is hustling. He's working hard. I can see it right here. So he knows a lot of business people, apparently. So this has been a lot, probably too much. But we didn't want to leave anybody out, and we still probably left people out. But the point is, the Prosper Waco Initiative, it's not just a single organization. It is a community effort across a wide range of issues, a wide range of organizations, to try some innovative things, to try things that wouldn't get done by any one organization, and frankly, don't get done in a whole lot of communities. So I'm sorry if we left you out. There are a number of organizations who are at the table who are part of this work. Read the initiative report, talk to us, we'll tell you about them as well. If you're one of those folks who somehow has not been covered by what we've talked about for the past 2 hours, there's still an opportunity for you to be involved. One simple way is by, well, first, if you are still paying attention and you still have your phone up, you can answer this question. If you have an idea of something we haven't talked about yet, or if you have an idea that would make one of the projects we have talked about even better, put it in the Menti poll. We'll kick it back to the group so you see all those responses, or put it down on your idea sheet. One easy way you can get involved is our local United Way has a dynamic new executive director. Unfortunately, she's ill tonight, so she's on the agenda but couldn't be here. The Week of Living United, the United Way's big campaign, begins tomorrow morning. On Saturday, hundreds of volunteers from participating companies and organizations will be working with the city, with Waco ISD, to get out into Waco, get their hands on Waco, do beautification, cleanup within the school district, within the city. And throughout the week, there will be opportunities to support the United Way in their fundraising and their campaign by directly giving, but also by shopping, by buying, by eating, all those things that we like to do anyway. The United Way plays an important role in collecting resources to turn around and support the organizations and the projects you've heard about tonight in a very smart, strategic way. So that's an easy opportunity, is to participate in supporting the United Way. Also, before you leave, we'd love for you to take a look at this card, and I'm going to ask Liz to come back up and Christina Helmick, our Director of Communication, to come back up. If you would like to get involved at the neighborhood level, maybe you're not looking to start a business right now, but you want to make something happen around the corner from your house, you can take this card, you can mark, I want to become involved in a strong neighborhood team. You can hand that to Liz Lagawa. If you want to be involved in one of the projects we've talked about tonight, if you want to get more information, you can check one of these other boxes. You can hand that to Christina Helmick. Or you can just leave these, you can put your name on here and leave it on your table, and we will collect them. If you want to mentor, you can check that box. If you want to mentor specifically with Waco ISD, fulfill what Dr. Nelson was inspiring us to do, or if you want to work with another school district like Midway or Connolly or La Vega, you can put that on here. If you just want general information, you can put that on here too. So leave these on your table, if you will. Leave your idea sheets on your table, if you will, but please take anything else that's on your table. You've got success stories that are in front of you that I forgot to mention, but hopefully you've been looking at throughout the night. You have Forrest Alton's report, The Way Forward, around the issue of teen pregnancy. You have information about the Waco Power Switch program. You can keep that for yourself or give it to somebody else. Take all that information. It'll make our cleanup job a lot easier. But leave these and leave your idea sheets. And your evaluations of the event, says our data person. She wants to crunch that information, okay? We're going to follow up from this event. Everybody's got an email address registered with us. We'll kick back the responses, the input, the feedback, the ideas that you've had tonight, so you'll see all of that information that you provided. But we'll also provide contact information for the individuals and the projects that we've talked about tonight. So if you want to get involved, if you want to connect, if you're like, man, I'd love to go talk to Kevin, but I got to go get some sleep and get ready for work tomorrow, but when I get some rest, I'm going to want to know more about that Hustle co-working space. We'll have his contact information in that follow-up email. So I hope you got to talk to somebody tonight who you didn't know, got to make a connection, got to build a potential partnership. Continue to do that. Feel free to do that until the convention center kicks you out at the end of the evening. Thank you for taking the time to be here. Thank you to a whole bunch of people, and I'm going to turn back to my notes because I don't want to forget this. Thank you to the organizations who sponsor the summit, help defray the cost. This is not a fundraiser, but it is an opportunity for us to come together and talk about what we're doing here. And what's going on. So thank you to them for helping defray that, committing to the community. Thank you to the public and private partners who provide support for the initiative, including the operation of the Backbone organization. It is an investment by the community to have a forum like this and to have a staff that we're lucky enough to be part of to do this work and to facilitate this work and to help provide this connectivity. Thank you to the organizations and individuals who participated tonight and are part of this ongoing work. Thank you to the individuals who commit their time to both participate in the working groups and collaborative groups, but also to lead those. So our working group chairs, many of whom are here tonight, Dr. Mary Conrad, I think Cheryl Pooler might be here tonight, Dr. Fred Hills might be here tonight, Kelly Crane I know is here with the Health District, Janet Jones, Ashley Weaver with Waco Foundation is somewhere. Thank you to them. Thank you again to the Prosper Waco Board of Directors, the Prosper Waco Leadership Council, the Prosper Waco Community Engagement Council. Thank you to my team, the Prosper Waco staff, to Liz, to Brittany down here, to Jillian, who's manning the AV over there, especially to Christina Events rarely go off without a hitch, but I don't think we had any major issues tonight, and that's because when that happens, it's because people are doing a ton of work in advance and a ton of work behind the scenes, and that went through Christina, so thank you to her. Thank you to Mr. Darius Ewing, who volunteered with the AV as well, to Baylor University students, Project Link students who volunteered out back to register. Thank you to all of you for being here. Can you give yourself one more round of applause? We look forward to connecting with you. Let's keep this work going. Thank you. Have a good night.